Daniel Ricciardo has had a tough time with McLaren this season, and it looks like things may go from bad to worse soon. The Australian driver has only managed 1 points finish this season, and has looked uncomfortable in the new specification of cars. McLaren have stood by so far, but on the weekend of the Monaco Grand Prix, his boss made it clear that time was running out. How much trouble is Daniel Ricciardo in? Let's find out. Ricciardo has driven in Formula 1 since 2011. He had 3 pretty uneventful years driving for HRT and then Toro Rosso, the old Red Bull second team, before getting his big break for Red Bull Racing. He impressed while at Red Bull, securing 7 wins in his 5 years on the team and coming third in the Drivers' Championship twice. Then, a young Max Verstappen came along and it became clear to Daniel that he wasn't going to be the number 1 driver at Red Bull forever. Daniel thrived off being Christian Horner's main man. But when Max came along, the Red Bull boss saw a superstar in the making. Ricciardo wanted to be the main man at the team, and that wasn't the case anymore. So he looked elsewhere. 2 years at Renault in a car that wasn't as competitive as he wanted it to be were followed by a move to McLaren in 2021. Daniel has a problem when moving teams. Coming third in the Drivers' Championship twice while at Red Bull has raised expectations for what he can achieve. His new bosses expect him to perform at that level again. The issue is that the caliber of drivers in F1 at the moment is incredibly high, and Daniel is lacking a few tenths of a second to the top guys. Adapting to the new regulations has been difficult for the driver as well. If you have a look at the driver pairings across the teams at the moment, the less experienced drivers are performing well against their more experienced counterparts. There are a couple of exceptions in Zhou Guanyu and Mick Schumacher. Those with a few seasons under their belt though, like George Russell, Esteban Ocon, Lando Norris, Yuki Tsunoda and Charles Leclerc, are all outperforming their more experienced racing partner. I think there is a trend with the new regulations. Those drivers who have been around longer are struggling to get to grips with the new cars, whereas the younger drivers with more elastic minds who haven't ingrained habits and techniques from the old spec cars into their driving styles have been able to adapt more quickly. Whatever it is that's causing Daniel to perform at a lower level than he wants to be at the moment, F1 and McLaren seem to have no intention of waiting for him to work it out. Of course, a big part of the problem is that the team has a contract with Ricciardo that goes until the end of the 2023 season. You can't just sack him because you don't want him anymore. That contract has to be followed. There might be a way out for McLaren though. Asked if there was a get-out clause for the driver or team if they did not want to continue into 2023, Zak Brown said, "I don't want to get into the contract, but there are mechanisms in which we're committed to each other and mechanisms in which we're not. I spoke with Daniel about it. We're not getting the results that we both hoped for, but we're both going to continue to push. I think he showed in Monza last year he can win races. We also need to develop our race car. It's not capable of winning races, but we'd like to see him further up the grid." While Zak Brown might not be willing to talk about the contract, there are examples within F1 of get-out clauses in contracts. Helmut Marko has stated that there's an exit clause in Max's contract in case Red Bull suffer another collapse like they did in 2014. Then Max is able to get out of his contract. It is thought that the clause may say that if Max is unable to finish higher than 4th in the Drivers' Championship, then he can leave the team. Of course, Daniel's contract won't have anything quite so severe in it. He might like to finish 4th or higher in the driver's standings, but he will have known when he signed his contract that the reality of the situation is that McLaren aren't currently in a position to make that happen. It is likely to have something in it that says that if Daniel doesn't hit key performance indicators, such as average points per race, then McLaren will have the option to terminate his contract early. As far as options for a replacement though, Zak Brown did hint at where they might find an appropriate substitute for Daniel. We'll see how things develop and what he wants to do. And then we've got our testing program ramping up, but we're in no rush. Who in the McLaren testing program could Zak have been referring to? Well, there are a few obvious options. Colton Herta is the first obvious option. The IndyCar driver recently signed a testing and development contract with McLaren as he desperately eyes a slot on the F1 starting grid. Team principal Brown may also look to Herta in a bid to capitalize on the newly found US audience, desperate to see an American driver on the grid. Brown recently claimed that the team had a plan installed for the 22-year-old, suggesting he's a key part of the team's squad going forward. Brown even admitted he would be in with a shot at an F1 drive if he continued his good performances. He said, "Colton has to be super fast, fun, and enjoyable to work with, and he has to be very good in his technical feedback. If he does all of that, when a seat becomes available, he's in with a shot." Oscar Piastri is another name that has crept up a lot in the past year or so when discussions of new drivers happen. Piastri dominated the 2021 Formula 2 season a year on from securing the Formula 3 title. The Australian has been praised as one of the sport's greatest upcoming talents, but yet has not secured a drive on the grid through a simple lack of slots. The final one of the obvious options is Pato O'Ward. The Mexican has just signed a new deal to keep him at McLaren's IndyCar squad until 2025. However, his new deal will include extra seat time in F1 cars after he took part in the end-of-season young drivers test at Abu Dhabi last season. Brown confirmed O'Ward would definitely be included as part of the team's F1 testing program, which keeps him firmly in play. O'Ward himself has openly declared his love for F1 and suggested he would love to make a transition within the next couple of years. He said, "My dream of becoming a racing driver came about in Formula 1. It's what opened your heart to such a different world." Those three are probably the front runners if McLaren decide to make the switch mid-season based on Zach's comments about the McLaren testing program. While Piastri seems to be a fan favourite, the young drivers who have recently joined the sport have failed to hit the ground running, and that will be a problem for McLaren. So Pato O'Ward might be the most likely option at the moment. Zach's comments have received some backlash from the F1 media though. Daniel is well loved in the sport by the fans, the rest of the grid and the media, so it isn't too surprising that a few people came to his defense. Former world champion Nico Rosberg talked about Ricciardo's trouble in the McLaren car after the Monaco Grand Prix. He seemed to be on the side of the Australian following Zach Brown's comments. Let's not forget, this weekend the engineers let him down and gave him a car that was not in the right place. And that's what caused the crash in practice session, Rosberg said. And once you have that, it's almost impossible to find that rhythm again on the weekend here in Monaco. So I think we can let him off for this weekend. Nevertheless, it is a tough situation for Daniel, with Zach Brown publicly saying he's not living up to expectations. Things aren't going to get any easier for Daniel anytime soon either. While the end of the season is a while away yet, teams will be planning who they want in their car for 2023 already. Changing a driver mid-season can be hard. It normally means bringing in a rookie driver who wouldn't have had any time in the car and very little time in the simulator. Changing drivers during the winter break, though, is easy. The start of the new season is a great opportunity for drivers to get testing miles in and develop the car in a direction that suits them. Zach has actually spoken about a possible option in the past. Pierre Gasly is an incredibly well thought of driver who's been impatient at AlphaTauri waiting for his spot on Red Bull to open up. With Sergio Perez now signed up to race with Red Bull until 2024, Pierre will definitely be looking for a drive in a more competitive car in 2023. It's a real credit to him that he stayed committed, said Brown last year when quizzed on Gasly's future. Something will happen for him in the future. He won't be able to stay with the family if an opportunity to return to the Red Bull Works team isn't coming. He's too good for that. An opportunity will come at some stage. He's doing a brilliant job. Well, that opportunity might be coming from Zach Brown himself if Daniel's form doesn't improve soon. The Australian driver might be loved among the fans, but in F1, points mean prizes. And if Daniel doesn't start securing points soon, the only prize he'll be getting is his contract termination letter. Let us know in the comments what you think of Daniel's season so far. And do you think he'll still be at McLaren for next year, or even at the end of the season? Till we see you next time, drive safe and bye-bye.